Hello students, how are you? I hope you are all fine. I am Rakhi, English mistress from Government Senior Secondary School Sangowal, Ludhiana. Students, we have already done our 2 sessions of the chapter 1 of our main course book, The Happy Prince. This is our third and last session of this chapter. But before beginning this session, let us just recall what have we learned in our previous sessions. So, the Happy Prince and the Swallow are helping the people of the city. When the Happy Prince sees the misery of poor people, his heart is melted with the pity. He has helped the seamstress by giving her ruby with the help of Swallow, and he has also given sapphire of his eye to the young writer and another sapphire to the match girl. So when after that Swallow wanted to go back to Egypt, Happy Prince asked him to stay with him. So now Happy Prince and Swallow are talking to each other. Now Happy Prince gives the Swallow another assignment. Let us look out what the So let us continue our chapter. So the Swallow flew over the great city and saw the rich making merry in their beautiful houses. While the beggars were sitting at the gates, he flew into dark lanes and saw the white faces of starving children looking out listlessly at the black streets. Under the archway of the bridge, 2 little boys were lying in each other's arms to try and keep themselves warm. "How hungry we are," they said. "You must not lie here," shouted the watchman, and they wandered out into the rain. Then he flew back and told the prince what he had seen. "I am covered with fine gold," said the prince. "You must take it off leaf by leaf and give it to the poor. The living always think that gold can make them happy." Leaf after leaf of the fine gold the Swallow picked off, till the Happy Prince looked quite dull and grey. Leaf after leaf of the fine gold he brought to the poor, and the children's faces grew rosier, and they laughed and played in the street. "We have bread now," they cried. Then the snow came, and after the snow came the frost. The streets looked as if they were made of silver. Everybody went about in furs, and the little boys wore scarlet caps and skated on the ice. The poor little Swallow grew colder and colder, but he would not leave the prince. He loved him too well. He picked up crumbs outside the baker's door when the baker was not looking, and tried to keep himself warm by flapping his wings. But at last he knew that he was going to die. He had just enough strength to fly up to the prince's shoulder once more. "Goodbye, dear prince," he murmured. "Will you let me kiss your hand? I am glad that you are going to Egypt at last, little Swallow," said the prince. "You have stayed too long here, but you must kiss me on the lips, for I love you." "It is not to Egypt that I am going," said the Swallow. "I am going to the house of death. Death is the brother of sleep, is he not?" And he kissed the Happy Prince on the lips and fell down dead at his feet. Let us discuss word meanings of these lines. Listlessly. Students, it is an adverb It means without energy. He walked listlessly after he lost the game to his opponent. Second word here is crumbs. It is a noun word here. It means small pieces of bread or cake. The sweeper threw the crumbs into the waste basket. Students, we have already discussed how Swallow and Happy Prince collectively help the city people, like they helped seamstress, they helped the writer, and they also helped the match girl. When Swallow decided to stay with the Happy Prince asked the Swallow to go and let him know what he saw while flying over the city. So the Swallow flew and took a round over the city and saw that rich people were living happily in their beautiful houses, and they were partying while the poor people were begging and sitting outside the gates. Then he went to the dark lanes where there was no light also, and the poor people lived. There he saw that the children were hungry, due to which their faces had turned white. Further, the Swallow saw two little boys under the archway of the bridge. They were lying much close to each other, so that they kept themselves warm. They were so poor that they did not have food, so they were trying to keep each other warm. Two children were starving and wondering that how hungry they were. Just then a watchman appeared and scolded them. He shouted and made them go away from there. The poor children kept wandering in the rain as they were homeless. Then the Swallow flew back and told the Happy Prince what he had seen in the city. The Happy Prince told Swallow that his whole body was covered with fine gold. He could take tiny pieces of gold from his body and give it to the poor people in need. All the living beings required money, and when they would get gold, they would feel happy. Slowly, the Swallow took out the gold layers from the statue of Happy Prince. As he removed the layers of gold, the Happy Prince statue started looking dull and grey. As the statue of the Happy Prince started looking dull and grey, the children grew happier because through it they were getting food to eat. Finally, it started snowing, and when a lot of snow fell, everything froze. Everyone was wearing clothes made of fur. Small children were wearing red colored caps and were roaming here and there. They were skating on the ice. Swallow Bird was feeling very cold, but he would not leave the prince. He loved him too well. Swallow did not want to die, so he used to go to the bakery where the baker used to bake the bread and to eat the breadcrumbs and tried to keep himself warm by flapping his wings. But at last he knew that he was going to die. He had only enough strength to fly back to the statue of Happy Prince. and he says goodbye. Now, when this swallow is about to die, he says to the happy prince that, "Can I kiss your hand?" Happy prince thought that the swallow wanted to go to Egypt. So he said that he was happy that finally the bird was going to Egypt. Happy prince said to swallow that it had stayed there for a long time and now it should go to Egypt. It wanted bird to kiss its lip instead of hands because the statue loved the bird. Then the swallow bird told the prince that he was not going to Egypt but to the house of death. He added that death was a brother of sleep. He kissed the happy prince on his lips and fell down to the feet of happy prince and died. At that moment, a curious crack sounded inside the statue, as if something had broken. The fact is that the leaden heart had snapped right in two. It certainly was dreadfully hard frost. Early the next morning, the mayor was walking in the square below, in company with the town councillors. As they passed the column, he looked up at the statue. "Dear me, how shabby the happy prince looks," he said. "How shabby indeed," cried the town councillors, who always agreed with the mayor, and they went up to look at it. "The ruby has fallen out of his sword. His eyes are gone, and he is golden no longer," said the mayor. "In fact, he is little better than a beggar." "Little better than a beggar," said the town councillors. "And here is actually a dead bird at his feet," continued the mayor. "We must really issue a proclamation that birds are not to be allowed to die here." And the town clerk made a note of the suggestion. So they pulled down the statue of the happy prince. As he is no longer beautiful, he is no longer useful, said the art professor at the university. Then they melted the statue in a furnace. "What a strange thing," said the overseer of the workmen at the foundry. "This broken lead heart will not melt in the furnace. We must throw it away." So they threw it on a dust heap where the dead swallow was also lying. "Bring me the two most precious things in the city," said God to one of his angels, and the angel brought him the lead heart and the dead bird. "You have rightly chosen," said God, "for in my garden of paradise this little bird shall sing for evermore, and my city of gold, the happy prince, shall praise me." So students, before understanding text, let us discuss the meanings of difficult word. First word here is proclamation. It is a noun word. Students, it means an official order or announcement. As the mayor issued a proclamation to ban smoking at public place. The second word is with us, that is noun word, a factory, where metals are molded into different shapes. That type of factory is called a foundry. They tried to make this metal into an oval shaped figure in their foundry. As soon as the bird died on the happy prince's feet, an unusual sound came out from the statue. The sound was of the breaking of the statue's heart, which was made of lead. The heart broke because of the death of his beloved bird. But it said it was so cold that heart broke into 2 pieces. The very next morning, the mayor of the city, along with his councillors, was taking a round of the area where the statue of the happy prince was erected. When he crossed the statue and looked up, it said that the happy prince statue looked so untidy. The councillors always agreed with whatever the mayor used to say. So they also asserted that the statue looked untidy. The mayor noticed that the ruby stone which was placed in the handle of the sword was missing. The sapphires from the statue's eyes were also missing, and the layer of gold from its body was missing. The mayor said that it seemed as if it was a statue of a beggar, and the town councillors agreed with him. The mayor noticed that a dead bird was lying on the feet of the statue. Then he told the town councillor to pass an order that the bird were not allowed to die on the feet of the statue, and the town clerk made a note of suggestion given by him. The art professor of the university said that now the statue of Happy Prince did not look beautiful and was not useful anymore, so they should demolish it. So they melted the statue, which was made of lead, in a furnace. The supervisor of the foundry saw a strange thing. This broken lead heart will not melt in surface, so they must throw it away. The heart of Happy Prince statue, which was broken into 2 pieces, was not melting in the surface actually. Coincidentally, they threw the heart of Happy Prince where the dead swallow was also lying. Now, God asked one of his angels to bring him the 2 most precious things of the city. The angel brought the 2 pieces of heart of the statue and dead swallow bird. God said to the angel that it had brought the right thing. It had chosen the right things, which were indeed the most precious things of the city. He said that the bird would always sing in the garden of his paradise, and the happy prince would stay in his city of gold and admire him. So students, let us have a look on whatever we have studied in a recent session now. That the story of a happy prince was a story of a statue. The statue is covered with gold and many fine jewels. It can overlook the city from his position. One day a swallow seeks shelter between the feet of statue and discovers that the prince is sad. Although the swallow needs to migrate to Egypt for the winter, he is so drawn to the kindness of the prince and the goodness of his heart that he agrees to stay behind and help him dispense gifts to the poor and the needy. The little swallow loses his life in helping the poor. His death breaks the prince's heart. So the swallow and the happy prince perish for a noble cause. In the end of the story, happy prince, lead heart, and the dead swallow are demanded by God as the most precious things, because they have not only seen the people's misery but also converted their miseries into happiness. So students, actually it is a story which is based on the theme that love and sacrifice are important values in human life, and happiness comes to those who make others happy, those who have compassion and concern get as much joy as those who receive their kindness and charity. So students, I am very much sure that you have must learned many things from this session. Now it is time for homework. In this way, the Happy Prince story gives us an important message. The message is that we must spread happiness around us if we wish to be happy. The Happy Prince could be happy only as long as sorrow was not allowed to enter his palace. Once he saw pain, suffering, and injustice. Even his lead heart cried. The disparity and sorrow in the society can overcome by compassion, generosity, and sharing. This is also another message which story gives us. The generous prince and the gentle swallow sacrificed their lives to bring happiness to the poor and the needy. However, their deaths did not end their lives. Their power of love made them live forever as the precious and chosen ones of God. And the most powerful message or the moral lesson which is conveyed in the story is that it is very essential to help the poor and downtrodden in the society. We must be sensitive to the people who are suffering, especially the poor, and help them out. This will reduce their sufferings and help them to stand up. This story highlights the virtue of kindness and pity towards others. It also tells us about sacrifice towards others. The Happy Prince could have retained his precious stones on his body and retained his glory, but he decided to give them all away to help the poor and needy. This shows the sacrifice done by the Happy Prince. The swallow was also a kind-hearted and polite bird. On discovering that the statue was not made of solid gold, he did not make any personal remarks. He had to leave the Egypt to be with his friends, but stayed back when the prince insisted. He also helped the prince in distributing precious jewels and gold among the poor and the needy of the city. He also had a compassionate heart. He refused to pluck out the sapphires, for they were in the prince's eye. And when the prince's eye had been given away as charity, the swallow decided to stay on with prince. Even when the prince asked him to leave, he did not. He braved the cold and hunger until his last breath and sacrificed his life for well-being of humanity. So, it is a story of love and compassion for humanity. Happy Prince given away his whole, and swallow gave away his life just to serve the humanity. Students, it is time for homework. You have to write down these questions in your notebook, and we have already discussed so many points in this session related to these questions. Your first question is you have to write down a short note on the sufferings of the poor people mentioned in the chapter earlier. You have to relate all the incidents to this question only. And our second question is, what is the message conveyed by the author? We have also discussed this point recently in this session. And your third and last question is, how did the poor swallow manage to live in so much cold? And students, with all of this, our session come to an end, and also our chapter The Happy Prince comes to an end. I hope you must have understood the story very well. So till the next time, have a nice day and goodbye.